Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our November/December agency admin training. Today we have a lot of exciting topics to go over with you today. Today we have Stephanie Grader, our newest staff member. We have Glory Verkusen, we have TJ Reed, and myself, Thaddeus Gassy. And every once in a while, Ty will bump in and out too to answer some questions. So I'll go ahead and let Stephanie go through our agenda for today.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So first, we'll provide updates on the status of both the annual refresher training and the permanent housing refresher training. Second, there's an update concerning a data element used by outreach/path programs that we'll discuss. And then third, we'll be going over HMIS security reminders that you should bring back to your agencies. And then fourth, we're training on the art gallery report 0252, the data completeness report card.
All right, and for some friendly webinar reminders, as always, remember to share what you've learned today with the rest of your agency. That's always just super important so that we're able to spread the information as well as we can. During this webinar, to ask questions, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Any common questions are answered live. Other questions will be aggregated and shared at a later date. Any longer, more in-depth, or very detailed questions can be emailed to the help desk so that we can answer you very specifically. Your agency's attendance is required, but we will always make a recording available to you. So if you know of other people at your organization who were not able to attend the webinar today, we will email a link of the video and post it online by Monday, December 10th. Users who aren't in attendance today have until December 14th to complete that webinar or complete watching that webinar.
So for the update for the status of the annual refresher training, so all clients who did not complete the training as specified have now been suspended. Their HMIS accounts have been suspended. They all have been sent notification by email, and the link is included in that notification for them to go ahead and complete the refresher training. And so once they do complete the refresher training, they would just have to submit a ticket, and then we will go ahead and activate their account again. And then all emails were CC'd with the agency primary points of contact as well.
All right, I don't see any questions about this floating around out there just yet, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic. Lori, go ahead.
Sure. So as an update for the status of the permanent housing refresher training, there are a few things that are just points of clarity. The first is that what we just went over was the annual refresher training. The annual refresher training was put out at least a few months ago, and we've extended the hard deadline for that one a few different times. So this one is permanent housing refresher training, and it's very specific only for permanent housing programs. Now, if you are at an agency that has a permanent housing program, if you have EDA access to a permanent housing program, you would also be included on that list and should have received a link to that. So for clarity, permanent housing programs do include rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, housing with services, and housing only programs. This is mandatory for every permanent housing program. So please be sure to check your email for that link. If you are confused or don't know what I'm talking about, please let us know, of course, at the help desk as well. The update for that is that there is, for December 5th, it was the deadline for that to be completed. That is going to be extended out until the 20th as a hard deadline. So essentially, we're going to send the agency administrators at your organizations a list of all users who have completed training by the 5th. and they'll have until the 20th to complete that training. Otherwise, their accounts will also be suspended. When they're suspended, it's easy for us to go back into the system once they have completed that training, just to simply update their account and reactivate their account. If you have any other questions about why we are doing this training, please refer to the October Agency Admin Training handout that's available at hmisaz.org.
We did have one question. So if somebody did not receive a link for the training, where's the best way, or what's the best way to get that link?
The best way to contact us is always through our support portal in the ticketing portal. You can also send us an email and we'll be able to respond and send you that link.
We'll pause just for a second for any other questions on that.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have other questions, but I will also be sure to send out another link to anyone that has not completed that training just yet as a reminder. For our next update, we announced in the October Agency Admin handout, in lieu of having an agency admin training, that there's going to be a change to the format of the outreach location. This is specific for outreach programs, PATH and PATH programs that are required to put in the latitude and longitude for each client that they're meeting with. As seen in the image, the change was from the present top image to the upcoming bottom image. This latitude longitude change unfortunately has been delayed because we're waiting to hear back from our software vendor WellSky. We have reached out to them, but are currently waiting for the issue to be resolved on their side. So be looking for that to be coming up and changing here soon, and we'll send you an update to let you know when that's been changed.
All right, now the moment you've all been waiting for, an update on security reminders. So the first training topic here is on security. We're going to go through our security plan, which is available online, our code of ethics, and some tips on password security. And just as a reminder, this is for both continuums, both Balance of State and Maricopa. All right, so first we're going to start by going over the security plan. So for starters, your IT department is the one who needs this, or whoever is in charge of your agency's computers. So if no one else, then please provide a copy of this to your CEO. What do you need to know about this? So the document outlines the minimum security for all HMIS agencies, and it outlines the kind of security used by our software vendor. Did you know that they employ 24/7 security personnel and video surveillance of the servers housing our data? How fascinating. Agencies are required to keep a copy of their users' code of ethics on file. Agencies are also required to inform the HMIS team within 24 hours of a user's termination or departure. Agencies are also required to use virus protection software and maintain secure firewalls. You guys all assume liability due to data breaches within your organization. Please do not share your usernames or accounts. All users are obligated to report suspected instances of non-compliance that may leave HMIS vulnerable to intrusion or compromise any client-level data. We also conduct random audits and users to ensure they follow the code of ethics. So just know that we're always watching. Just kidding, not always, but sometimes. All breaches to security must be reported to our HMIS team. There is also details about password management and protection within this document as well, but we'll touch base in more detail in a second. And then lastly, there are details about remote access, when and where you can access HMIS. So just as a reminder, this document is available on our support site. All right, so next we're going to just briefly touch on the code of ethics. So what do you need to know about this? So if you leave your work area for any length of time, you must log off HMIS and close the internet browser before leaving your work area. Never leave a computer unattended if it has HMIS open and running. Neither discriminatory comments nor profanity are permitted in the homeless management information system. This does not apply to quotes by clients, but if you're writing case notes, behave. All right, so finally, we're going to talk about passwords. I know there's a lot on this slide, but the strongest passwords are longer, but by definition, easier to memorize. So you probably will not need to write down somewhere. So this comic strip on the left illustrates that. So in the top panels, we see a password that is half gibberish, so it's brief, and it's mixed with common substitutes for letters, like a 4 for an A and a 0 for an O. In the bottom panels, we see a password made of 4 random but common words. So the comic strip here shows that if you tried to hack into an account using the top password at 1,000 guesses a second, it would take only 3 days to get it. So it's described as easy, so to speak. But for the bottom password at the same rate, it would take about 550 years. So we like the 550 years option, and that would constitute as a hard to guess. So the one on the top, as a reminder, is harder to remember, as I'm sure you guys all have trouble with, as do I. The one on the bottom, you might have already memorized this one because it's common words. And so the comment concludes at the bottom, through 20 years of effort, we've successfully trained everyone to use passwords that are hard for us to remember, but easy for computers to guess. So you are still restricted by service points instructions needing to add numbers and symbols, but consider using passwords more like the ones on the bottom here to better protect your account. And this applies to HMIS, but it can also apply to your other accounts that you use, like for bank accounts or anything like that.
Please don't tell us your bank account information. We'll go ahead and pause now and see if there's any questions about this section.
We did have one question that I think it would be good for everybody to know. So the question was, do you need to keep a hard copy of your code of ethics agreements for each staff on file? Glory?
Sure. So the code of ethics is ultimately the responsibility of the agency to keep. Whether you have a hard copy or you have a protected file and a way of storing that in your computer database, it's up to your agency, but your agency is ultimately responsible for keeping that document.
Awesome. Thanks, Glory. So without any other questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next piece of training.
All right, the last bit of training we're going over today is reviewing the 0252 Data Completeness Report Card. So what is it for? How can it be used? Primarily, it is used to monitor your agency's data quality. As our data quality plan states, agencies are responsible for running their own data quality reports on each of their programs on a monthly basis. Each program should monitor their programs with 3 reports. One of them is the 0252 Data Completeness Report Card. So today we're going to be going over that report. Like I said, we're going over how to run now, how to read and understand, and then how to use. So first, how to run. I'm going to go ahead and change my sharing to look at Service Point and walk you through how to run this report. All right, I've shadowed my data quality count, and we're going to enter data as, actually it doesn't matter what we're going to enter data as because we're going straight into ART at this point. To run 0252, we pull up our ART account if we have access to it. Our ART account appears, and we are able to search for this particular report. So I'm going to open up the public folder. Let's make this screen a little bit more large for you. We're going to expand the public folder. Scroll down to the data quality reports. Also, because this is one of the Art Gallery reports, you can also find it here within Art Gallery reports and resources. I'll go ahead and pull it from this one though. Expand this section. Scroll down to 0252. You can run a couple different versions of 0252 with names in reporting group or without names. I already have one pre-prepared, but I will play around as if I'm going to be running the one without names. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass to make it appear. I have a couple options for how to run it now. I can view the report or I can schedule the report. Most of the time, it is better to schedule the report because that way it doesn't rely on the speed of your own computer, and you can just hand it over to Bowman's servers. They run the report for you, and then they send it back to your ART inbox. So we're going to go ahead and do it that way ourselves today. We're going to click on Schedule Report. It'll give us just a few prompts. The first prompt is EDA provider. For most of you, you will not have to select anything for that. But for me, for this report, because I'm using a particular account, I'm going to have to tell it a level 1 agency to run a report through. It'll give you this first prompt, which we can ignore. I'm going to go ahead and run this one for the agency CBI, but we will not see any of its results, just how to run the report. After searching for the CBI acronym, it gives me all the results of that acronym. So I'll pull up a random agency here. Let's try this CBI bonus project. I'm going to click the green plus sign to add it to my list. And I can run it on multiple projects, so I'm going to add multiple of these to the report. So right now, if I scroll to the bottom, looks like I'm only able to run one at a time through, oh, sorry, this is the EDA access. All I need to do is do CBI peer support. I'm sorry, I just said something confusing. This is where you would select your level 1 agency. This isn't the project that you're running the report on. I've now selected the project that I'm entering data as. Next, I'm going to select which projects I'm running the report on. So I click on Select Provider, and then I click the Select button. Now I'm going to do that thing I did a moment ago by searching for the acronym of CBI, and then I'll pull in several CBI projects into the same report. So I've clicked on 4 here, and I scroll to the bottom, and I see that there are now 4 different projects that would appear on the same report. I'm going to click on Submit, scroll back up to the window again, and now I can do the final 3 prompts. The first one says a start date. Now, normally this is a monthly report, so we would run it only for 1 month at a time. So if I know that today's date is 12/04, I could change this to 11/04 for the start date and make my end date today. So it'll run from 11/04 to 12/04. Finally, you have an option to include services in the report card. I usually default this to no. There are other reports that are better at looking for data quality and services. So now I'm going to click Next. It's going to give me the back half of the prompts. Here I can change the name if I want to. It's always a good idea to name them before you save them, because otherwise when they hit your ART inbox, you might not know which report that was. You're going to almost always select the report format of Excel, because that way you can move columns around and change the visibility of items, whereas in a PDF, it's just solid images that you can't change. They're static. You can pick which user's inbox this can go to. You'll see your name here. If you have visibility over other users at your agency, you could send this to their ART inbox, not to be confused with their email inbox. This only sends reports within Service Point. The interval will always be once. Do not select anything but once in here, and do not ever change the start date or the end date. And then we can click send. Once it's done processing, when it's finished, it would appear in our ART inbox. We could click the expansion arrow, and then our latest report would show up here at the very top. I'm going to minimize this now and show you another thing where at the bottom of the screen, all of our scheduled reports show up here as well. It will be the very, very latest one at the bottom. I would click on the word refresh, and it would show me that latest one that I just ran, which I called FAD ran for training. On the far right, it says it's currently running. And when it's finished, we could click on the magnifying glass next to the report and then download it, and then we would have an Excel file ready to view. So I've already got one of those ready to view. Now I'm going to switch over to that Excel file to take you through the next steps of how to read the report. All right, so now we're looking at the report output. There are 5 tabs in the report. The first tab is the summary tab. This tab gives a basic pie chart and some overall grades showing the scores for every project you ran this report for. In the lower part of the summary tab, we see each of those 4 projects that we ran. I ran them for different projects because I don't want to embarrass anyone if they had an odd grade. So we have an OPH project, and then we have 1, 2, 3 permanent supportive housing projects. And we see included in this summary tab a column for UDEs only, a column for the grades for the additional questions, and then a column for the grades of the sub-assessment questions, and finally a column for the overall grade. In the second tab, the overall report card, it sums all the grades of every project you ran in this report, and it gives you the data score broken down by specific questions. Again, there's a subsection for the UDEs, and there's a subsection for the additional data elements, and there's a subsection for the HUD verification questions. The third tab gives you the individual report cards for each project you ran in this report. We see separate scores for each of the projects now instead of a sum score. So the first section is for third PSH project. Scrolling down, we also see OPH project, and we see first PSH project, and et cetera. And for each of them, it gives them an individual grade. This is useful to compare and contrast your different projects to your agency in case you need to target training to any individuals at any of your projects. In the fourth tab, and this is the fun one, this is where you can really use the 0252 for the most effect. What I've done in this tab is I've hidden a large portion of the listed errors, so we only see 2 errors for each project right now, of each of the 4 projects. How am I looking, guys, as far as the size on the screen? Do I need to zoom in at all? Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Make these a little bit easier to read. Couldn't hurt to have to scroll. Okay. So first, we need to go over these acronyms at the top. What do they stand for? Well, they are the same elements from the report cards. So if we were to go back to the report card and we see all these elements here, there's these HUD elements, the UDEs, and the additional items, and the HUD verification items. Those are where we get these acronyms up the top here. We have the client's ID on the far left, client's ID number, which I blacked out, their entry date, their exit date if it exists. Moving left to right, there's these HUD universal data elements, and I'll go ahead and highlight these so they stand out a little better on this screen. It's asking for, was a client's name recorded? Was a social recorded? Was a date of birth recorded? Was a race, ethnicity, gender, veteran status recorded? Has the staff answered the question to yes or no disability status? Did they mark a residence prior to project entry? Did they record the length of stay in that previous place? If the client has exited, was a destination recorded? Is there a designated head of household? And was a client location recorded? This next section for additional data elements It wants to know, was the answer for domestic violence recorded? Was it correctly recorded whether or not they're receiving income or non-cash benefits or insurance? These are the yes or no questions. Yes or no income, yes or no non-cash benefits, yes or no insurance. This column here is for services, and they're all marked not applicable because I said no to recording services in this report. So on to the HUD verification section. In this section, it shows how many, I'm going to highlight this again. It shows how many of the sub-assessment values were recorded. So the disability sub-assessment needs 8 recorded. That's why it says disability OK equals 8. Non-cash benefits needs 6 answers over here. And insurance needs 10 answers. And income, there's 15 different potential answers for income. When it says income OK equals 15, that means if it says OK, then you've recorded all 15 elements for income. And then there's this one in the middle also, income amount, INC amount. It's basically asking, was a valid income amount entered? Now you would see just a plain dash there if they didn't need to have a number. So if they had recorded somewhere else that they were not receiving income, then it's not a problem that there was no income amount entered. That's totally fine. So now that we've gone over what each of the columns mean, let's go over how do we read the output. So in these sections, an OK appears in green font when there is a value for that element. So every one of these OKs, there's a value for those elements. Null appears in a red font when there is a missing value for the element. And missing values mean that either there is no value selected or that they picked data not collected, because data not collected is considered bad data quality. A dash appears where the value is not applicable, and I said that a moment ago for income amount. And for the HUD verification items, which were these, an OK means you've answered all of the sub-assessment questions. So if there's a data issue with the HUD verification section, let's scroll down to this one down here. Make this one yellow. If there's a data quality issue, a number appears in a red font. For example, where I've highlighted, a 5 appears in red for non-cash benefits. This means that 5 of the 6 possible pick list types is recorded and 1 pick list type is missing. So with this information on this tab, you're able to go back into those client records, look for the relevant entry, and make those corrections. So the final tab in this report, tab E, additional information. This is still an important tab. When you submit a ticket asking a question about your report, you will want to keep this tab on hand because it tells you how you answered the prompts to run the report in the first place. In my example, I chose level 1 agency as the EDA provider, and I ran the report from a period of June 1 to 12/4. This particular one I ran for a longer period of time, not just 1 month, because I wanted to make sure and capture a lot of good examples. Also, this tab gives me the number of clients who had a record with your agency during the period you ran the report for. So anyone who had entered or exited during that period, and we see those numbers down here. For the OPH project, for instance, there were 9 clients that were either entered or exited during the period that I selected for this report. So again, after you have found these data issues, you can pull up the clients listed in the first column from here with their client IDs, and then you can make the corrections that you find and you're good to go. So in closure, if you have questions about correcting errors in Service Point that we covered in our we do cover that in our online training for how to correct errors, but you can also submit a ticket for guidance about that. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a few questions.
All right, so we do have one question. The question is, how do you correct the information in a client's profile? Do you do it within the report or within the client record or both?
So for these ART reports, the ones that you're just looking at an Excel document, it pulled the information from the live information, and then it's telling you where to go to find to fix it. Unlike the COC APR or the CAPR, you're not able to go directly from the report output and click on some link and be taken directly to the client in question. You cannot do that with these ART reports because they're just outputs of numbers. You do have to do some manual searching to find those clients and correct those errors as you see them. Good question. All right, everyone, I think we're good to go. We don't have any other questions right now. So on that note, thank you so much for coming today and listening and watching and hopefully not being bored. And we wish you to have the very most happiest of holidays seasons. We do not have another training at the end of December. This was the combo November-December training. So the next training will be in January. Please let us know if you have any questions, and please return to the survey that we'll be sending out soon. Thank you so much and have a great day.